Good Book Life, our second episode. This is a chat all about AI and how do you unplug this thing? How do you turn it off? So that's my position. I'm joined by two author guests, Andrew Knighton and David Cartwright, and journalist supreme Peter Ray Allison. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
What can we say about AI and the challenges that are posed by it? Well, there's been a major shift in the publishing world. There's a growing use of AI used not only by people who are independent publishing, but even by traditional publishers these days. And they're using it to generate the fiction, they're using it to generate the art, they're using it to cut out editors. And there's a pressure on writers to adopt these tools whether or not they want to. So we are going to be examining how it's basically being forced on us and how it's being built into the apps and the platforms that we use every day, from word processors to note-taking tools, and what it means when opting out becomes harder than opting in. So we are not about hype or panic. I think the pros and cons have been well known for some time about AI. It's about understanding how these technologies are shaping our storytelling as well, and the creative process itself. What is it doing to our brains? And why many writers are concerned about a future where the human side of creativity has to compete with systems that are becoming increasingly unavoidable. So I'm going to ask my guests to introduce themselves. I'm going to start with David Cartwright. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm David Cartwright. I am an author and a freelance writer. I've published a few books now. I've got some stuff coming down the chain that's very exciting, and I've also written for a few tabletop RPGs.
Very good. I also noticed you're wearing an awesome T-shirt.
Yes, there's a wonderful anthology. I Want That Twink Obliterated. Heartily recommend it.
Yes, it's a great anthology. And very suitable this month as well. It's Pride Month. Okay, and Andrew would like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, my name's Andrew Knighton. I'm a fantasy and science fiction writer. My novel Forged for Destiny was nominated for the BSFA and Prometheus Awards, and my novella Walking a Wounded Land is currently shortlisted for the British Fantasy Award, which is very exciting. I've also been a freelance writer for 13 years. So much like David, my day job as well as the fun part is the writing. And so I've been seeing the impact of AI on that work firsthand at the moment.
Okay, thank you. And Peter.
Hi, I'm Peter Ray Allison, freelance writer, freelance journalist, co-founder of the roleplay events company Mythic Echoes, and most recently RPG writer for projects I cannot say under pain of contract.
Yeah, and death. Or cake. Peter, you've also written quite a number of articles about AI recently. So what do you think your research has shown you more when it comes to sort of like the publishing side of things, storytelling, that kind of thing?
AI has a lot of potential to change our society, whether for the good or the bad, that remains to be seen. But what it does well, it does really, really well. And I think that is what and that's what's driving this push for AI adoption, because it does a lot of things really, really well, but also really, really badly at the same time. It's homogenizing, it's pattern recognition and pattern adoption. And that is pushing through a lot of the slop, for want of a better term, that we see. It regurgitates a lot of slop, and that's also causing a lot of work for us as well. From the journalistic side, I have an editor say to me, we will backlist any writers or journalists that use AI to create their articles. Which for me, really good. I know of at least one editor who worked for, I'm not going to name names because confidentiality, he worked for one publication and they ditched all their writers and went for AI. And in his words, the quality dropped downhill and he spent all his time where it was originally writing to correcting all the mistakes the AI had put in.
Mm.
I will say this, I do use AI in my work. Otter voice transcription service is amazing. I will give it a half-hour recording of an interview and it will transcribe it down in 5 minutes flat, where before it would take me 2 hours. Now, there are transcribers out there that's saying, well, hang on, what about our jobs? I never used transcribers. It was something I did on my own back. When I was able to kind of just take that recording and just get a reasonably accurate transcription of it, that's great. However, it's not infallible. If you could talk about a technical subject or with a strong accent, then you have to really pay attention because it will come up with some very interesting interpretations of, words, accents, and so on. So
I get that with humans. I used to constantly get a pint of soda water because I'm from the Black Country, and I was like, "What kind of cider is this?" So yeah, I don't. I don't blame computers for not being able to understand me. At the moment, me and Neil, my husband, have a competition as to which one Alexa's going to get the question most wrong for. At the moment, Neil's winning.
A few years ago, when I was using Alexa, it would only understand me if I spoke with an American accent. Which is bizarre.
No, don't test it. I also make Alexa speak to me in Australian.
Yeah, it has its uses.
Yeah. By the way, we keep saying the word, and I bet everybody's smart speakers have activated and they're listening to us. So, like, ooh,
Alexa, search for Peter Ray Allison.
We had trouble finding you as it was. Okay, so you've mentioned the word slop. What, Andrew, was your reaction to the word slop? What does that conjure up for you?
I mean, it's a very powerful choice of words, isn't it? Because it's so evocative, and it's so loaded. So whoever first, and I don't know who first pinned that onto it, they absolutely nailed it. And because it is that sense of something homogenous, something squishy, and that just kind of spreads out like blah, 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 in this somewhat purposeless way. And I think for me that kind of it expresses that thing of like the lack of texture to it, what you lose there. Like if you just took all the ingredients for your food and stuck it all in the blender and mushed it all down, rather than actually like cooking it up into a sauce or a bake or a pie. And instead of pie, you've got meat shake, or not in my case because I'm vegetarian, but it's
that
yeah, quite. But so it's like it's a very evocative, and it fits. It fits with some of the stuff I've seen. I've never tried using the generative tools, even when it was first coming in, and people would be like, "Ooh." By the time I even might have got to the point where I would get round to trying it, it was becoming very quickly clear that this was a problem thing to keep away from. Or at least it was, certainly the problems with that generative large language models were coming up already. But I've seen in my freelance work, I've encountered stuff like this. I have had somebody hire me for a ghostwriting project where it was like, right, I've got a draft. I want you to improve it. And they hadn't mentioned AI. Well, I got the document and I'd been hired, so I'm going to have to do this work. And I start going through it. I'm like, this is quite repetitive, and the language isn't terrible, and the grammar and the spelling is fine, but it's quite bland and it's quite repetitive. And as I'm becoming, the more I talk about it now, and so I had that moment of clicking in my head of, oh, this is what everybody's been talking about. This is what everybody's been looking at, and it had someone with genuinely high expertise and in their area and who had the level of knowledge in the thing they wanted to write a book about, they are probably one of the like 10 people in this country who knows most about that, is most capable of writing that book. And they had taken AI and they had used it and they had produced something that was useless, but in a way where people would mistake it for useful. And they hadn't even realized they'd done that. And that's fascinating.
Yeah. Okay, so David, do you think that word is evocative for you? Do you think it or provocative?
No, I think it's evocative. I think I mean, for me, it comes up. Being an author is so hard anyway. Being a creative in any of the creative disciplines is so hard because there are so many of us. There's a great deal of appetite for what we do. So trying to sort of climb the ladder or the hierarchy and become more recognized and known is really hard, especially when the industry itself it plays safe. It doesn't like originality. It wants the next Percy Jackson, the next Lord of the Rings. It's hard to get a new idea out and supported. So for me, the whole idea of an AI slop is like, it's something you trudge through. It's like this thick glutinous mud that is just holding you back from making progress in your chosen profession. So yeah, I think they've absolutely nailed it.
I was thinking as well, as a freelance editor, when I've been approached by authors to work and they've said to me, this is written in Claude, as an example. That's the version of AI that Richard Dawkins is using, and he thinks he has a girlfriend who is an AI. He thinks it actually thinks. It's like, I think you're real, Claudia, he calls it. Yeah, don't know if you heard about that, but that's true. So I had somebody approach me with that. Hey.
Like even that, it points at something about this, doesn't it? That there is an extent to which these are, what it's doing is taking existing problems and kind of it cranks them up a notch. Whether that is like taking parasocial relationships to a whole new level, or the marketplace of shoddy works that is, there is a lot of creative, of stuff of culture under capitalism. I'm gonna waving the marks around in a minute. But it's like there is an extent to which it's not, people are talking about it as if it's like, here is this huge new problem. And I look at a lot of what it's doing and I go, that's not a huge new problem. That is a hugely exaggerated and accelerated version of the problems that we already have. So.
Yeah, probably. I just think it's really fair of a writer to ask somebody to edit their book if the editor is then going to have read more of the book than they have. Because honestly, you've given it a read through and then if you have actually read your own work that you've done through AI, then you will know exactly where the weaknesses are and you could be able to tell that editor what to work on. In fact, you would have gone through it and you'd be able to have made those changes yourself for the most part, and then it's just tweaking. But most of the time, I reckon that there's this, because you get a lot of these requests through sometimes. It's like, I don't want to have read more than this than you have. If you can't bother to read it, why should I? Why should anybody else? I mean, that was the case, I thought, when Amazon started publishing a lot of these ebooks that were AI generated back in the early days. I think it's like 2022, and there would be AIs reading those books on Kindle Unlimited. So somebody making some money somewhere and actually devaluing the money that real authors were getting through their Kindle Unlimited books because somebody wanted to make some money by not writing something or not reading it. So yeah, really, really bad. And of course, I come to this with a kind of, let me just say, I do think that there are some positives to AI because AI is not just the Gen AI or agentic AI that we've come to know about or learn about in the past few years. It has been around pretty much since the 1960s. And doing different things, pattern recognition, that kind of thing, like you're saying. Like, so, it's just coding. It's just coding. It's just that generative AI is particularly thirsty, isn't it? Like how many? It's like you ask a question in Chat GPT, takes a bottle of water. If it doesn't answer it correctly, have another bottle of water. There you go. And I saw Sam Altman this week said it's going to take a while before you can use Chat GPT as a timer. Why would you do that when you've got timers already on your computer? That
Or
you
you
don't
could
need Chat
use
GPT.
a watch.
Yeah. What time is it? I don't know. I'll make it up. 12 time.
Yeah. I mean, one point on how thirsty generative AI is, there are now AI tools that are able to make the energy consumption more efficient. So they are tackling that issue, but it is still massively, massively, massively thirsty compared to, say, looking at your watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's the problems that it's impacting communities and their water supply, much in the way that we've seen from certain elements of the chocolate industry in the past. They're utilizing towns' water infrastructure, but it's causing massive pollution. There's been several cases in America recently.
Yeah. Like I noticed that we had those power cuts last year in Europe, so we weren't particularly affected, although I've noticed we have been having more of them. But France, Spain, and Portugal are particularly affected. They're actually thinking that AI can help manage that, but from my reckoning, I'm pretty sure I had read this last year. I tried Googling it again this year, couldn't find a single thing. But I heard it was the Muppet memes, when people making Muppet pictures of themselves that had been such a hot trend that it had caused an overloading of the system. But now, if you look it up, it doesn't say anything about that anywhere. It's gone. That has gone, and now it just says infrastructure incompatibility, which I imagine is pretty much what was happening if everyone was overloading it with requests for Muppet pictures. So yeah. So I'm thinking, yeah, the internet is definitely getting. So if I don't remember stuff and I try and Google something, I can't trust the internet now because a lot of the stuff out there isn't real anymore. Are you finding this in your research?
I do a lot of research, probably too much because I end up going down rabbit holes and going, oh, I didn't know this. And one thing I've been looking into is trying to investigate some Tim Bradstreet artwork, who from the original Vampire the Masquerade. Now, there was a very popular image of a vampire, and apparently it was based on Linda Blair. Now, I looked at like the alleged. I say alleged because I approached Tim Bradstreet, didn't get a response. I approached Linda Blair, didn't get a response. And I'm wondering, did Tim Bradstreet use a photo of Linda Blair without permission and therefore doesn't want to say anything? Or is this photo generated by AI? And I'm thinking, and we have now got the stage where I don't know. I can't tell. Because I look at the photo and thinking, yeah, I can see the distinct similarities. But also is thinking, don't know. And the fact is that you now get the stage where we do not know. We cannot tell in some cases. I mean, okay, you get 6 fingers on a hand. That's a bit of a giveaway. But the some cases now where you cannot deep fakes are now becoming much, much, much more convincing. On the dark web, they're now essentially offering services of illegal hacking forums that can simulate a call center to the point of mimicking background noise, such as keyboard typing, mouse clicks, and can converse in 24 different languages simultaneously, 120 times simultaneously. And they're able to do that with a 90% convincing rate. which
Yeah.
for me, it's pants-sweatingly terrifying.
Yeah, so we also know, if you've ever looked into the work of Carol Cadwallader, who looked into the Cambridge Analytica scandal, which affected us 10 years ago, that he was proved highly influential in the Brexit campaigns. So people don't like to hear that they've been fooled or duped into thinking a particular way. It's not nice to hear that, and it's not nice to think that. So people are kind of might prefer for that kind of thing to be pushed under the carpet, but it's been out there for 10 years that we can be influenced through fakery, through memes, through convincing posters that say this is true. Look at this queue of people. This is in Kent, and it's not. And yeah, people have been like hoodwinked, as it were, by malicious actors for a long time, and I think AI is only going to make it worse, isn't it?
It's another of those things where it kind of demonstrates this point about it's not necessarily a new problem, but AI again accelerates it, and it intensifies it. Because there's or at least part of the problem there is there's a fundamental underlying lack of media literacy skills. We're not being trained. It's been clear for decades that we're not training people to cope with living in the world as the internet. And then even before that, actually, we weren't probably teaching people in schools enough how to be critical about their news sources. It's just that those were in print and the pace of everything was slower. And so now we have another layer of that. And again, it's that problem. We're not being taught or raised in how to distinguish that, or in how to go, where has this come from, and trace it back. For me, when I'm doing research, I'm going to think about how reliable the source is. And if it's not, I'm going to follow that back. Maybe it says something, but I don't know if I can trust it. Well, I need to go look at another source. There's a good chance I'm going back to the, paper websites on the shelves behind me rather than the ones that might have been covered in spam. It is preying on the weakness that already exists there as a society, and that we haven't found a way, or we haven't found the will to tackle yet.
AI has been trained on the internet, and the internet is full of misinformation, unverified information, rumor, hearsay, but the deception is so I'm hearing, going farther. AI, we know that the internet generates money by, you click on a link, you look at a thing, it has advertising. That's where sites get their money from. There are now cases arising of AI generating rage bait articles against AI in order to farm clicks to monetize fake websites.
We could think of lots of negatives. So from people's ability to think creatively, there's people's ability to write essays, write stories by themselves, carry an idea through to the end. Hallucinations, the exaggeration of biases and bad data, and just basically taking the humanity out of things as well. What is it that bugs you the most about AI? I'm going to go with the negatives first. I'm going to go with Peter.
Everything. No. I will say it has a lot of uses, but I feel there is a lot of... It needs guardrails, it needs barriers in its appropriate use, and its appropriate use does not include art creation, of whatever type of art. I mean, keep art human. That is what makes us human, to be able to create art, and create art that is fundamentally emotional, inspirational, whatever. It evokes an emotion response. And I find that the art generated by AI isn't. But like I say, there's a lot of fundamental issues around AI that are not being addressed, such as the lack of guardrails, the proliferation of weaponized AI systems, the lack of human in the middle decision making in regards to AI tools, and without being complete downer, AI, artificially enhanced, as AI enhanced weapons, basically autonomous killing machines. We are literally heading towards Skynet at a scary rate. And I mean, I studied AI at university in the 90s. AI and expert systems was a part of my course. And back then, everyone just called their course project Skynet. Looking
Yeah,
back now, that doesn't feel so funny.
perhaps worrying about Shy Girl, whether or not that was written by AI, is basically a minor concern, maybe, in comparison. Oh, this might not be an entirely human written book. Versus the end of the world. David, what about you?
I mean, yeah, as Peter said, we have cases now of first confirmed human deaths in the Ukraine associated with AI drones that were not being monitored, that were just sent to an area and cut loose. And I think this was like 2 years ago. They did a limited test on these. Boiling it, I mean, coming away from like the massive international and like end of the world scenario, I would say, like, I mean, you remember in school where they would give you a book and you would read it and you'd go through it in class and you would learn how to interpret the author's ideas, and it's sort of higher thinking. So I mean, you do your rote learning, you do your logical progression learning, and then you do your like interpretation of message learning. It's all very, very important to the human condition. If a few years down the line the book is written by AI, how are you going to argue what the author meant by saying the curtains were blue? Which is one of the big memes I think was going around, because robots, AIs, they don't have that imagination. What they have is a string of instructions or a string of options that they chase down to the finite point. So yeah, I think that is something that bugs me, is that the way that it takes away from our learning how to learn, because that's one of the most important things that you get from education. If you just Google, you get an answer, you get it wrong because you're not learning how to learn. You're not cross-checking your sources. You're not using like common sense. You're just being fed answers, and that's not teaching you how to learn. And that marks the decline of the species, I'm afraid to say.
Like, picking the thing that bugs you is probably going to depend on which day of the week it is. There's so many of them. I had like a whole list. I think one that I found interesting to think about recently, and it's helped me think about this in terms of other spheres, and it's why I'm still thinking through, is the issue of intrinsically satisfying work. And again, it's one of those things where actually once I started thinking about it, I went, oh, this isn't just AI, but it's already quite hard to get work that is intrinsically satisfying and that you do because you love that work. And actually having that is something that's very valuable to people and their well-being. And, if whether we write or edit or compose or paint or do those kinds of things, but it might be people gardening or knitting, for some people, what's intrinsically motivating is community work. It's getting out there and doing things with people. And one of the things that actually as a society we should be trying to do is go, well, okay, how can we get more people doing intrinsically motivating work? It's more satisfying, you will stick with it better. But we're bad at rewarding it. We're bad at shaping our economic and social systems in a way that encourages and supports that. And AI has come in and just gone, you know what? All work is a thing we need to avoid. So we're just going to find a way to take away these bits of work. And there's no concern for whether or not they're the intrinsically rewarding ones.
Yeah.
And it's trying to make it just all about the extrinsic reward, the thing you get at the end, or the money you can get out of people. And so, like, sure, if AI can mean you don't have to do the admin, maybe there's a value in that. Except that actually, what really we should be learning from that is maybe we didn't need to be doing all this admin anyway. And so the AI becomes an excuse not to tackle that problem, while at the same time it looks at the intrinsically satisfying work, the work of writing or composing or putting a picture together, whatever, and it goes, yeah, you know what, let's get a computer to do it instead, and let's undermine all the ways that you could get rewarded for that. Yes.
Yeah, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there. I think it's very much like when there's a lot of people sort of like at work right now and they're being told by their bosses at the top of the chain that they must include AI in their work because it's all about productivity. And it's not about sort of making that worker's day easier. It's about how can we get more out of that worker in the time that we have paid them to be there. And it's also you've got people sort of like just randomly using their integrated AI systems in order to create a piece of work that is busy work. Just done this. They know that they've done a report. No one's going to read it. It doesn't mean anything, but it's busy work that they've done it in there, and not really getting on with the fundament of why they're there, why they enjoy their job. It's probably taking it away.
Can we mention the Marvel layoffs?
Go on, yeah.
The Marvel movie studios gutted their creative department.
Yes.
The artists who design costumes and scene setting and stuff, and they've reduced it down to like 10%. And this is thousands of people who have lost their jobs to AI.
Yeah.
I had heard of that actually, and I was at a generative AI conference a few years ago, which for me to be there was that I was just grinding my teeth the entire time. And I got to see various kind of applications of it. Some were good, some were bad. And it was telling that out of all the different projects that were on display, the one that kind of won the award for, money was basically one that kind of negotiated to get to the best deal for the owner, rather than the AI system that could analyze someone's body health and develop a diet and exercise regime that would help them improve. They chose the people, not the AI, the people that behind this conference chose the one that would make more money. And that tells you everything you need to know. Bastards. And apologies, we just made it at 18. I'm sorry.
So right, that is all fine. 'Tis the internet. And we're no longer allowing children on there. It's lots of areas. YouTube. Well, unless you have a VPN, of course, which in which case your parents are awful.
Okay, basically, all that's going to mean is in 10 years' time, we're going to have a lot of children that are really good at workarounds.
Yeah. This whole thing is about workarounds, isn't it? The whole thing about AI is working around the thing. It's like it is hard writing an essay, but the whole point of writing an essay is to get you to exercise your brain. Not only are you presenting what you know, but you're learning how to know the thing that you're supposed to know. So we don't want a generation of doctors who've AI'd their exams and their essays, do we? I'm sure. I don't know if you saw the thing that was going around the other day. It was the inside of a woman. It was like correct positioning of a moon cup, and basically it had replaced the womb with the moon cup.
I wonder how it's going to affect the IT industry, because there's been so much information about how to solve problems with your computer and your IT systems online. A lot of people do get through their day jobs of helpline AI IT helpline by looking up guides online. Now with AI, a lot of that material is wrong.
I've already had, because I know quite a lot of people who work in IT. I suspect we all do, given the circles we move in.
Yeah.
And I've already had someone say to me, where I'm working, we've had to start hiring junior developers to replace the AI because the AI was getting too expensive and it wasn't doing the work. Whereas the promise of AI for them 2-3 years ago, their company was all on board with it because it was going to replace the junior developers. And then, of course, that created the problem that, well, okay, you have AI overseen by senior developers. How do you get senior developers? You hire junior developers and they learn how to be senior developers. But nobody thought that bit through. So you kind of, this is the kind of thing that gives me hope, because we are already seeing these things where some bits of society are like coming out the other side of this in small and fractured pieces and going, ah, God, okay, that was a mistake. How do I get out of it? And it feels like, yes, there is going to be some value is going to come out of this in the long term. There are going to be some things that stick around for good and for bad. But for a lot of it, it's like, how many of us, with the work that we do or the projects we work on or the things that we love, how many of those things are going to survive this current hype around it?
Yeah, indeed. So, as I say, we're coming towards the end of our chat, so I'm going to ask you all to do maybe something. I did put you a list of novels about AI. Have you read any novels about AI that you like? I think last year I read Service Model by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Very funny, very spot on. It's about just like the robots, humans trying to be robots, almost in, if you like, a reverse centaur situation, but no money at all, no money involved. Okay, David, what have you read any books that you would recommend?
Oh, Murderbot, the Murderbot series. It's so funny. Martha Wells did an absolutely wonderful job, especially with the cynical critique of corporate adoption of, who gets the contract is the one who bids the lowest amount of money that it costs and will reap the highest rewards. So all the technology in the universe is crap.
Yeah. Andrew?
For me, I think a much more positive one that I just had on my brain recently was Ian M. Banks's Culture novels, and then in a very similar vein but much more recent, Claire North's Slow Gods. It has, in a similar way, it's not about AI, but there are AI characters, and I like this idea with both of those that to some extent the AI just becomes these things that kind of just look at humans almost as, sometimes, especially with banks, sometimes they're as pets or as things, but it's just another thing that's out there with us, and actually it's smarter and more adaptable, but it's happy to hold our hands when we need it. That's the one I'd like.
Okay. Peter?
I'm going to go with the classic of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because that was just 40 years, 50 years later, it's such a realistic, this is what we're heading towards. Just really dumb AI. Not dumb as in it's low, in terms of just dumb executions, dumb reasoning. And that's where we're heading.
Yeah, although I always personified, I associate myself with Marvin, the paranoid android. He's got a brain the size of a planet, and they've got me picking up pieces of paper. Go and pick up that piece of paper. I feel that's what they're going to do to us. That's what they're going to do to us, the people who insist that we use AI. We'll just be reduced to picking up the pieces of paper, because even though we've got brains the size of planets, we have to leave it all to the doors who go, shh.
We're a very satisfying sigh.
Yeah. Okay, so what have you guys been up to lately? What would you like to promote at the end of this podcast YouTube thing?
Like I said, I've been working for the past couple of years on a project. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but hopefully we're getting some very, very exciting news about that I can share with you very, very soon. In the meantime, my last book out, Rendered Flesh, not AI, but it is a isekai zombie horror thriller, which I was very, very proud of. It was my COVID novel, so there's a lot of crunchy politics and crunchy violence and action and horror in that.
Nice. Andrew?
I completely forgot to get my copy at hand so I could wave it around for the camera. David's more professional at this than me. But my most recent novella, All That Is in the Earth, is a sci-fi novella about people stranded, quarantined on a planet and trying to build community there, and just trying to survive in desperate times, which, aside from the fact it's my main sci-fi thing, feels kind of appropriate for this conversation somehow. So, yeah.
As you're speaking, I will have manifested a picture of that.
The magic of the internet.
Peter, what are you working on?
Okay, well, for the past 18 months, I've been working with Jackie Richardson at Derby, basically celebrating the 100th anniversary of Dracula being performed on stage in Derby. So I've been brought in to kind of look at Dracula's influence on role-playing game. So we've organised Vampire Games Day, vampire-themed role-playing games in the Gothic formal library. And the first one was last year. We had the second one in February and sold out. And we're going to already be invited to hold again next year. And we're also organising a vampire LARP in Elveston Castle last year, and we'll hold it again next year, this year in November. Tickets are available online. Just look for As Night Falls, The Crimson Ball. And coming up next month, we have Vampire Games Night in association with the Dracula's Bazaar Gothic Market Hot Goth Summer. And we're going to be holding vampire-themed role-playing games in the quad. So come along, have fun, invite your friends.
Love
Nicely.
love the quad in Derby. I'll see whoever's there at Edgelit this year.
Absolutely, I will be
Who's
there.
going?
I think I've got an event
Come on,
conflict.
Daisy,
I think.
go.
I think I've got. I'll have a look.
Peer pressure, peer pressure.
Peer pressure, indeed. And I will wave my latest anthology that I've edited, Obsidian, on the screen right now. That's available through the slab.press. And yeah, great. And events wise, I'm organising the Indie Book Fair on the 26th of September in MK Centre. That's Milton Keynes, in the shopping centre just outside John Lewis. That'll be from 10:30 till 5. Do pop along, find your next favourite author. Okay. So I would like to just thank Andrew Knighton, David Cartwright and Peter Allison for joining me on the Good Book Life. And everyone wave. We're going to say goodbye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.